Check, check. 1, 2. Yo, yo, yo. 3, 2, 1. Go. Here we are, everybody. What place was I? I was fourth place. Fourth place. I know what place I was. I was kidding. Gerard's like, wait, what? You don't remember what place you are? Fourth place. Here, it's documented. I'll say that's definitely the hardest I've ever worked for fourth place in a not world championship race. Yeah, I guess mixed emotions to start off. I mean, I thought obviously I was coming to do a little better than fourth place, and so if I just look at the place, it's a little disappointing in a way. But yeah, I want to avoid doing that too much. I mean, obviously it is about, okay, you have to show up. I'm a professional. The place I get matters. In comparison, matters. But I guess I'm also getting a little bit away from that and really focusing on my own process, especially as it's the first race of the season. And I thought I raced really well, actually, for myself. If I break it down, I mean, the swim was my kryptonite today here for sure. I mean, I just lost too much time. I don't know what it was exactly. I mean, maybe I just wasn't quite ready to go at the start. I don't know. It was like, I don't know if I didn't warm up enough or something, or maybe since it was a much smaller field, there just weren't as many people to fill the gaps. And so it was basically either making a pretty selective group or swimming on my own. And of course it was a bit of a disaster then with Lionel coming by me. And then I was just, I don't know, I was so gassed. I wasn't even able to stay on his feet. So I exited a little bit behind. Yeah, the swim was just kind of weird. I thought I was swimming well. I thought I had a pretty good start, and then I just was not quite where I wanted to be. It could come down to maybe pushing it, and I've done this in the past, maybe pushing the swim a little bit too much, too close to the race, and that I actually needed a little bit less of, like more of a taper for the swim leading into it. And I think that's really where, I mean, the swim is where I lost this race, hands down, for sure. But in general, I was just like a diesel engine. Like, it took me a while to rev up on the swim. It took me a while to rev up and get going on the bike. And it took me a while to rev up and get going on the run. And obviously, a race that's 2 hours and 35 minutes, it's like you got to be going from the get-go. And even like if it was a proper 70.3, I think like I had maybe still more endurance. But anyways, on the bike, yeah, again, it was just sort of like, okay, I wanted to try and catch Lionel, but I just was struggling at the start to see some wattage and to make up time, and struggling to be positive at the start of that actually as well, because it was just like, this feels off. I just wasn't quite ready to go, but then just tried to be patient. And then, yeah, about halfway through the bike, I did start to feel more like my normal self. And it's not like I was feeling horrible at the start, but it just wasn't quite what I was expecting. I mean, I still had the fastest bike, so I had the fastest bike, so it was decent. My wattage actually was about the same as last year, but I think a huge difference this year compared to last year is the conditions and the dynamics in the field played a really big role, and so that's what's cool to learn. Like, actually, if I look at my performance, I think my performance from a pure numbers standpoint, okay, my swim was a little bit worse. I think I was like 2:30 down, while last year I was like 2:15 down. Okay, so 15 seconds worse. That's not a disaster. My bike power was actually higher than last year, and my run was faster, but the temperature was much less. But I think the big difference with the conditions this year is the bike was just, because of the temperature, but especially because of the wind, it didn't break groups up. And so I think, like, if you came out in a proper swim group up front, and the guys really did a great job of working together. And so I noticed, like, when I would pass groups, if I sat at the back, sometimes say fourth or fifth position, I mean, it was like 50 watts. And then to put out those extra 50 watts would make me go like 15 seconds per lap. So it was a big energetic cost to make up a little bit of time. But yeah, I just put my nose to the grindstone, tried to stay somewhat positive, focus on the process, got off on the run, and I actually was really looking forward to a great race on the run, and it was a fantastic race. I mean, the run was super, super tactical. Tom Bishop, leading it out, me and Daniel starting together. at first it seemed, okay, I'm maybe a little, the sense maybe at least in my head was, okay, it felt like I had a little bit of the control over Daniel, but I also was aware maybe he's just sort of using me as his pony to lead him out. And so I did force him to take a few pulls. And then again, sort of slow to get started, a little bit of stomach cramping. But my run was good, my run was good. And then I sort of settled in and said, okay, let me do my own race. I mean, Jason West came flying by. There was zero option of hanging with him, and just absolute hats off to him on a terrific, terrific race. I think he's been a hugely underrated athlete for a few years, and a guy, I mean, I said it in my pre-race YouTube. I was like, Jason's a mega guy to watch out for, and turns out, yeah, that was very, very true. No one was even close to his league on the run. I mean, he was on a whole nother level there. And then, yeah, I sort of started to play it to myself, knowing, okay, it's still somewhat hot out. And when David McNamee came by, I was like, okay, perfect, latch onto this and use this. And then getting the cheers from my wonderful, beautiful Laura. She was saying, you got this, do it for the baby. And then the last, because what I was visualizing, like if it was going to be with me and Lionel for first and second, was I visualized like, okay, I'm going with a lap and a half left to go. And so at this point, I'm like, okay, well, at that point I was in 5th place, which I'm like, 5th place is definitely not what I want to achieve. But I was like, just focus on the process, focus on getting the most out of yourself. And that's really what matters, at least from like a personal experience side and what I'm not trying to achieve, but just with who I'm trying to be this year. It's more about, okay, what can I get out of myself? And I can't control if people are simply better or the race dynamics. I mean, I hope to be able to play more into those race dynamics, right? The race would have been completely different had I swam a minute 30 back and been in the group. But with what I'm given on the day, the cards I'm dealt, like it's just about getting the most out of myself. And so a lap and a half, I really amped it up, said, okay, for my baby, for my baby, for my baby. I was thinking maybe it's a boy, which we find out next week if it's a boy or a girl. And so we have the boy name decided. So I was, saying, and I can't tell you the name, but I was saying, for the baby's name, for the baby's name. And it was sort of this mantra going in my head. And I actually had a super fun last lap and then came through, 4th place. And that's what I had today. It was a good race. Like I said, I think my numbers and my metrics were actually basically on par with last year. I think what's really important is last year, and this is okay, right? Because a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, you were 1st last year and now you're 4th. So like this coach thing isn't working out. You're behind where you were at last year. Like you're just not maybe the athlete you were last. I don't know what the people are going to say. But I'm just gonna, correct that here. Like I think last year I really burned a lot of matches. I also, last year I ended my, like in 2021, I ended my season in September, took off season till November. And so I had burned the house down with training when I got to this point. And I think it was actually some of the highest fitness I had all year, and which was great then to come and to win. But then it had this domino effect later on the season that I actually wasn't able to maintain the fitness. And so I think this year I'm in more or less the same fitness I had last year. The dynamics of the race, the wind conditions, the temperature being cooler, I think just didn't quite play into my favor, as well as other guys. Just Jason West completely stepped it up this year. They worked together on the bike. And so anyways, I think I'm basically on par with where I was last year, but without burning and digging such a graveyard for myself for the rest of the season. And so with that, I'm happy. I'm going to stick with the process. Yeah, I got a lot out of myself. I fought deep, and looking forward to Oceanside. I really think that's the key. It's just, it's just one race.